Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live Bold and Boss Up. Guys, this week we have Lauren Prager on here. She is the Chief Strategy Officer over at Synapse Florida. Really impressive. I love how she's really built her career around community and cultivating personal connections. She always finds the kind of like bottom line connection between people, whether they disagree on different things or not. She always finds like a commonality to them. It's beautiful. Previous to this, she was in Washington, D.C. She was a lobbyist, an educator, community organizer, building bipartisan support for foreign policy issues, which is a mouthful. I don't know how she finds time to do this because she has two children as well, and building a home and career and life for her. It's really cool. So it's really fun to talk with her and connect with her. And we really hope you guys find value in this amazing episode. Listen up. We will be live at Synapse as well, Live Bold and Boss Up. So check us out there. Enjoy the combo.
Pretty interesting to go from volunteer 4 years ago and this door to open into a career I never, it was not intentional. This was not a part of any sort of a plan, grand or otherwise, but I just knew that for me, it was important to get back into work and to explore something new. And I used this as an opportunity to kind of, be curious and ask a lot of questions. I tell my girls all the time, Big Bird says that asking questions is a good way of finding things out. And it's cheeky, of course, and a little bit and a little silly, but it's so true. And I think as a society, sometimes we feel embarrassed to ask questions like we should know it all. Just Google it, right? Or, and sometimes I find I learn better from others. It's how you have a dialogue and ask follow-up questions and understand what brought somebody into their area of expertise, learn about their passions. And that's a lot of what, for me, makes communities and connections so valuable, is just seeing what makes somebody feel excited and brings them joy. You see it on their faces. Right. And so when you have an opportunity to learn from them and see that, it makes the work really powerful and it doesn't feel like work. Right. And that's been a real gift. So that's been exciting. So I have no idea if I sent you my bio, but I'd be happy to do so. That's where this all started and we'll kind of go from there.
No, I love that it started off as a volunteer thing because it was something that you're passionate about and it just kind of like happens to turn into a career. Which I love that.
Yeah. I had shared with friends that I was ready to transition from back into working. When I had my first daughter, I was working a lot in a really intense job, which I loved. And then when we had an opportunity to move to Florida, my career that was really very policy focused and really very Washington focused wasn't something I could take with me. And so I used this as a moment to really focus on family, support my husband in building his career. And I kind of got to a point where I realized that I would be a better mom if I had the opportunity to really focus on my own intellectual curiosity and make a contribution outside of my home in addition to inside of my home. And I could teach them in a different sort of a way. And I was really trying to true to myself in that moment. And when I put it into the universe and told friends that I was not sure what my career could look like, they said, well, I have a buddy who's planning an event and it's focused on innovation and business and technology, and he needs some help putting this event together. And I had a lot of experience working in the policy world, putting together educational events for everywhere from 50 people to the largest one I ever assisted with, I think we had 20,000 people. Wow. So I kind of leveraged those experiences to help building out the first Synapse Summit. And through that, I really used my position as a novice, and as I like to say, as a Luddite, somebody who's not naturally technologically inclined, to ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And through that, to really source the connections that were making this community thrive and grow. And I met these incredibly talented, passionate people who were brilliant. And they weren't just dreamers, they are the doers. And you cannot help but be inspired when you see people following their passions and then finding ways to make it a reality. And that was really, to me, this spark where I understood truly what innovation was. And the community was so welcoming, and it really embraced me. And it was incredibly empowering. So just by saying yes, and this 5 to 10 hour a week volunteer role that I quickly turned into like many, many hours, working nights, working weekends, hiring babysitters, kind of asking friends and family to help me so that I could be present and a part of this. And they saw my passion, and my colleagues and other volunteers at Synapse saw my passion. And so when things worked out with our first event, we ended up with over 3,000 people at Amalie Arena. Wow. And over 150 companies that came to exhibit and showcase their take on innovation. It went very well. And so the team asked me to stay. And I said, well, I'll stay, but not as a volunteer. You're going to have to pay me. And so here we are. And it's been an amazing journey since then. And again, not planned. And I know that's really hard for those of us who are planners and type A and like to know what the path is, but sometimes you just have to kind of keep an open mind and explore yourself. And that's been a lot of fun.
There was that green light and you took it. You took that green light, and then it turned into something, this amazing opportunity. And wow, 3,000 people for the very first summit. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's grown since then. And what I've come to realize, and I think especially now that we are about 2 years into this transformational moment in society with our pandemic, is that there really is no substitute for human connection and creating space for that to live and breathe and exist. And that's why I believe people came together 5 years ago for the first Synapse Summit and Amalie Arena, why we'll come together again in February, why we've been able to connect people, because online connections are important and valuable, but there is a need to look somebody in the eye, to feel their energy, to allow conversations to evolve organically, and to really kind of experience what each other's passions and knowledge is. And so you can learn from that. And so creating space is it's a really precious commodity. And those of us who are balancing lots of other responsibilities in our life have to be very, very intentional and selective about where we spend our time, our talent, and our treasure. And so we're really proud that we can create a space where we feel like those things are put to good use and really valued, and people can be successful by participating in these opportunities. And it's been really, really rewarding.
I love that you mentioned talent. What did you say?
Time, talent, and treasure.
That's the second time I've heard a variation of that.
We literally were talking
To someone yesterday,
over and it was the same 3 T's. And we're like, it must be like in the meant to be for us right now to keep hearing this, because
we're on the right path.
Yeah.
We're like hearing the same thing. It's like a sign, like, yep, you're going the right way.
Yeah. And I think about that, that term a lot, because when you kind of distill what's most valuable and irreplaceable, those are those things. Time, for sure, number one. And we were speaking earlier about being, working parents, and whether you're a mom or a dad, time is the one thing nobody has ever figured out how to make more of. And so you must be really selective in how you use your time and who you give your time to. So we really try to be intentional about making it worthwhile for people.
Yeah, that's one thing we're working on now, or I'm working on now, is being present in the moment, and just like right now, sitting here talking to you, like really enjoying it and really being engrossed and allowing yourself to just get lost in the conversation and really enjoy it. Because you're right, you can't get more time, make more time, buy more time, right? So just really enjoying the time that you're spending with whomever you're spending it with is something I'm really trying to work on.
That's really special. And I think that's also what creates authentic relationships. I find it so fascinating when you understand and read about kind of where we are in society and the epidemic of loneliness. And you'd think that because of these little devices, we shouldn't be so lonely, but we are. And I think that the more that we put these away and we actually do come together in shared spaces and shared experiences and look each other in the eye and be very present, we can create really authentic and meaningful relationships, respect each other as people, even if we disagree on specifics, and find the commonalities that bring us together. And that that's really the common thread for me and brings me a lot of joy. And I try to put that back into the world through the work that I get to do and my role in, as a parent, and a friend and a wife, a daughter, all of the different, hats that we all wear.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious. I feel like there's so many things I want to talk about. But so I know you mentioned you were in policy before, and then you made the complete change, moved down here, didn't really know, I guess, what you wanted to do. Yeah. I don't know. And you can expand on that, but how did you get, what things did you learn from your policy background that you could put into this new Synapse and event planning? What skills could you transfer over, and how did that help you?
So when I had a chance to work in and around Washington, it was really focused on building bipartisan consensus on policy issues. And that's an unusual place to be. And when people think about Washington, D.C., and especially now these days with things being really divisive and really partisan. And so it took me a while to understand and kind of that unique role, but bringing people together and finding the shared values is incredibly powerful, and putting that positivity and good into the world, finding the whatever it is, that thread that connects us, our desires to make the world better, to make our society a more positive and welcoming and open place. I think that if we took the time to really talk to each other and listen, really, really listen to each other, we would discover that that is present in people's perspective. But sometimes we forget, and we allow, I think, kind of social change to overtake our perspectives, and we just don't breathe and give each other space and a little bit of grace. And so my work in and around Washington for a really long time was dedicated to listening and finding those commonalities, and then fostering them and really educating people, and not from a place of, disappointment. How could you not know this? But from a place of opportunity. And again, I think that's been really phenomenal about getting to know the innovation community. I am not a technologist. I can't, write a line of code. And I didn't know what a venture capitalist was until, a couple of years ago. And, but I ask a lot of questions, and I find that the common thread is we want to make our society a better place. And that is what an innovator does. An innovator is somebody who sees a need for improvement. They see an opportunity, and they don't just think about it, they do it. They take action. And that, to me, is the key. One of my mentors and a friend, Jeff Hoffman, says that ideas are valued, but execution is worshiped. And that's really important. And so the act of doing, we were kind of joking before about, setting up the space and how do we set this room up? And, it doesn't matter. We're doing this and having these conversations. So the act of doing is really important. And so to me, that's the common thread, is working with people who are taking action to make the world that they want to see today, and welcoming others in. And when you ask them questions about what drives them or the work that they're doing, they're so generous with their time and their passions. It's that just like me, I'm going on, and talking about the things that they love. So just ask people. That's really the key. Just talk to people.
I love that. Right. Because like you said, everyone's a little scared to ask questions because you think that you're expected to know everything, and you're not.
Yeah.
I just heard, I think I was listening to TED Talks or something like that. And a lady was up on stage and she was chatting. I can't remember who it was, but she said something that made me stop for a minute and listen to her a little bit more intently than just doing other things and having a TED Talk on or something like that. And she said, it takes 5 seconds when you think of a great idea, because the idea process is constantly ongoing in one's head, right? You're constantly getting ideas, but it only takes 5 seconds for you to realize you have an idea and 5 seconds to actually action on it before you mentally pull an emergency brake on it. So if you're thinking oh, that's a great idea, I need to, email that person. If you don't email them right away, or at least make a note to email them, your mind will shut that idea off, and it'll throw it in the wastebasket. And then you just don't have that idea anymore.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea and you want to action and you don't know how, you have to just do something towards an action within 5 seconds of that idea, apparently.
Yeah, I totally believe that. I share that with my girls. I feel that myself all the time. And I often say to them, you can do it all, just not simultaneously.
Right.
You can do it all sequentially,
right.
not simultaneously. And there's this idea, finally, I think we realize that we cannot multitask effectively. Right. I mean, I can listen to a podcast and make dinner or take the dog for a walk or fold laundry, but there's a limit to which we can be productive when we have so many open tabs in our brains. Exactly. Right. So it's okay. It's okay to stop and say, I can do this one thing at a time and do it as best as I can in that moment. And let's lead on that. Let's make that our example in the work that we do in our families. It's really very powerful. And I think really freeing. You don't have to do it all.
Right. That's probably how we lose our keys in our phone, because we're multitasking, right? And we think we're doing the laundry and making dinner and helping the kids out with their homework, but we're like losing stuff along the way because we're not there and present when we're putting down the phone and the keys. We're like doing other things.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
On a very simple level.
It's true. But it applies in work and in any part of life. And it's really difficult. It's something I strive for constantly. You talked earlier about kind of being in a flow state of mind, and that's really hard to come by because of so many distractions, good distractions, but still distractions. And so creating space is again, physical space or mental space is really so powerful. And I think the moment that we're in, there's finally an understanding of the importance of that, of that value and a premium on it. And that's great. I think, we should embrace that.
Right. Talk to me about you finding your superpower, because you mentioned that while we were chatting earlier, like finding a superpower. And I thought that was really cool. Like you should, give yourself kudos and like find that superpower that you have, right? Like I think everybody has something that they're great at. And I think acknowledging it and like sharing it is important, because it just kind of like manifest itself into compounding results, right?
I think so. I think it's okay. It's for each of us to kind of reflect on, again, not just other people's passions, but our own. What are we good at? What do people seem to seek us out for? What gives us joy? And for me, it's listening to others and finding out what their passions are, and hopefully giving them some energy to go out and accomplish whatever it is that they already were set to do. But it's been really interesting reflecting on my own path, as an educator and a community organizer, and working with people much older than me, younger than me, who have come to me and said, I really care a lot about this, but I don't think I can do whatever it is I want to do to actualize and self-actualize on this particular goal of mine. And we just work together to kind of figure out what that is. So for me, I feel like it's being an active listener and then creating valuable connections to opportunity, to others who have a similar and shared passion, and then allowing those relationships to flourish. The value of those warm introductions that really reflects how you know somebody and another person and why they should connect. That's really important. And I think that sometimes those connections can be really daunting to find, and it can feel really impersonal. So I love that. And I'm proud that that's something that I've been able to bring to my work and to my life. And I'm always looking to meet new people and figure out how I can be of service to them, because it makes each of us and our society better. So, so that I think that's my superpower.
I love that. I love that you said that, because a superpower doesn't need to be something big and huge, like even
invisibility.
Right. Like, listening is such a great one, because it sounds like such a simple thing to do, but really, like, how many people really listen to you? Like, I feel like that's a big one. And it can be something like asking the right questions, or sometimes you feel like, oh, I don't have a superpower because I don't have this like big thing that I'm good at, but it can be something small, like paying attention to detail, or, little things like that. And then that little thing can go a long way and make an impact in a lot of people's lot of people's lives.
Right.
And because I value it a lot, I'm constantly trying to figure out how to do it better. And there, for people who want to be present, be responsive, be engaged, there are just an amazing number of resources to listen to and read about, and kind of push yourself, whatever it is that the superpower you want to hone or that you have or want to develop. There are resources to help you do that. And I think, once I realized that that's something that I enjoy learning to do better and read about and then put into practice. And, as a mom with young girls, I have an opportunity to do that often and figure out how to be an active and supportive listener. And then, as a professional also figuring out how to listen for the things that I want to learn about is really important, but you just have to keep striving to learn more, expose yourself to more, and sharpen whatever the skills are that you want to develop. So yeah, it's a gift.
I know we talked about, and you mentioned your girls a couple times already. So obviously you have 2 girls.
I do.
And as a working mother, I feel like this whole thing with being present and being there for your kids, like sometimes we feel a little, and not just mothers, fathers too, like as a parent in general, we feel a little like conflicted with working a full-time job or not being there for maybe every activity or picking them up at school right at, as soon as they get out. So tell us, I know you've mentioned this whenever we were talking before, but how does that make you a better mom, working in a full-time job? Tell us how you juggle that, or how that makes you a better mom being a full-time career woman.
Yeah. And you mentioned dads too. And I want to take a moment before I kind of share my own experiences, but I think that oftentimes women are asked to kind of share, how do we juggle it all? And I think the men have as much of a challenge. They have a challenge too, right. And especially with 2 working parents and young children, and in an amazing way, so many members of society have realized that men have a really important role to play in family life and household life, and they want to be present. So I see the working dads that I get a chance to interact with, they're really juggling a lot also and very present. And so I never want to kind of take away from that experience. And I'm only able to do this because I have an incredibly supportive spouse who sees that this brings me joy, and it's a way for me to be a better person, a better mom. And I think once I finally realized that that's what I needed, my girls understood it too. It was hard at first because they were used to me being as available as they wanted me to be, and, play dates at the park and things like that. But I'm very transparent with our team about, family and what's going on and what we need. And obviously the pandemic has broken down a lot of those barriers in a good way, right. And really helped us to connect authentically with our colleagues and our mentors and our friends. And that I think has made a huge difference. And I think, my mom stayed at home, and I tell her all the time, it's the hardest job. I can't, she did that. It was such a gift for us. And I thankfully now my parents live close. And so I'm able to have them as a really present part of our lives on a regular basis. But I think that sometimes, we have to talk as a society about how important it is to have that balance. Not every person has, the opportunities, the support that I'm fortunate to have. And we need to help each other out. Women contribute so much to the workforce, to society, but childcare is woefully under-resourced, incredibly expensive, and difficult to come by. And I think that if we made those opportunities more available to families at every socioeconomic level, we would see society shift for the much better. And this transition in work and understanding how women in particular are leaving the workforce, are trying their hand at entrepreneurship, but are incredibly underfunded and under-resourced and underestimated, is an area where as a society we can step up. We have to step up, and it'll start with us supporting each other, women supporting women, embracing and working with the men who see our value too, and being more cognizant of those opportunities. So, that's kind of how I've come to look at this, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity we have now as a society to move things forward very, very positively.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I feel like working makes me a better mom too. And which is something that we don't normally talk about because it sounds like a faux pas, maybe a little bit, but I feel like it gives me the patience and the ability to then be there for the kiddos and like, okay, I'm ready for those kid questions or the kid time because I already had all this adult time.
Right.
I agree. I agree. You are, each of us, we're complex people. We have our own different things that interest and intrigue us and excite us. And that's important to honor that. And I think our kids respect that because they're complex people too.
Right.
And let's share that and invite them to be a part of it. You know, when we talked and you were in the car with your kids and when I take phone calls with my kids in the car, you know, that's okay. This is how we're going to learn together and embrace kind of society. So I don't want to shy away from that, but I think that sometimes women still kind of feel like they need permission to be okay with this. So permission granted for whomever needs permission.
Hey,
you know?
Steph and I bring our kids into the office all the time. So they see us working.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's, I mean, they're learning something, right? From that.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us, changing topics a little bit, tell us about Synapse. And I'm excited this year that it's in person. Ash and I will be there. So I'm super excited about that. But for the listeners who don't know what Synapse is, like, tell us about it.
Synapse is a nonprofit organization that exists to connect Florida's innovation talent. And we started this initiative 5 years ago because it was really just too difficult to find what you need or to share what you have. And for an innovator, connection and resources and information and access is essential to success. Nobody creates in a vacuum. So you need to find the right partners. And that's kind of the key, the right partners. And that's different for everybody. And so we created this organization as a way to kind of shrink the expanse between our different industries or technologies or even the geographies across Florida. And to kind of scale serendipity. So you weren't relying on, you know, hoping you went to the right event or right pitch night or, you know, trying to find the partner that you needed to build out whatever your project would be. But by bringing everybody together and creating some organization to the communities, you can really kind of find those resources. And so what makes this especially unique and exciting is that we connect across different industries and technologies. And when you come to Synapse Summit, again in February at Amalie Arena, you'll see 3 floors of the arena filled with over 300 companies exhibiting and over 150 speakers on 8 stages and hands-on experiences and a real chance to get to know innovation and innovators in ways that you might not normally, and kind of break down those barriers to knowledge and experience by doing. And that's really important to the way that we approach our work. We want people to be able to do, to really connect with and not just listen, but to have access to the leaders in our community. And so by creating this space, these opportunities, we've been able to really build a remarkable experience and focus on 3 main goals: to celebrate, to discover, and to engage with innovators. And that's what we'll bring together again. And it's a lot of fun. I'm very excited, very, very excited.
Yeah. And this year it's in person. Last year it was remote, right?
Last year was virtual. Yeah. But you know, it was really interesting when we hosted virtually for obvious reasons. We were still able to facilitate thousands of connections. And because of the nature of the community, people who have real intention and focus and curiosity and a desire, we were able to kind of monitor and see that over 3,000 personal connections, conversations took place as a result of people participating in the Synapse Summit virtually. And then we were able to bring in really interesting and dynamic speakers. We always do, but Damon John from Shark Tank and Mayor Francis Suarez, who has transformed the narrative around innovation in Miami and has really become a national leader on that front, and a host of really talented talented problem solvers and creators and doers, tackling a lot of huge issues, and bring them together, make them accessible, and people could engage with them. And that's really special. So we're very glad to be back in person. And this will be our 5th annual Synapse Summit when we get together in just a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And tell us about the speaker this year, because that's always like the big
reveal.
Yeah. Well, so, it's funny. Keynote speakers are something that people always ask about, but we really are excited for all of our speakers. They're not all household names, but these are the people that are doing really important work on the ground, really transforming, and I use that word very intentionally, society, and in ways I think we still have yet to truly understand. And we're in a very unique moment when we're transitioning into a much more kind of decentralized world, where I think being home, being able to be working remotely, and engaging and doing so many things remotely has empowered people to connect outside of the traditional infrastructures. And so this world of, some people, know it as Web3, decentralized community, decentralized finance, the world of the metaverse, the world of NFTs, cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology is something that we've brought to the community for the last 5 years, bringing some of the leading experts in Florida who are building companies and understand this work, because we want this to be a chance for education and access and asking your questions. And we'll continue to bring those perspectives onto our stages at this year's Synapse Summit. So Kathy Hackle is one of our keynote speakers. She is dubbed the godmother of the metaverse and is the chief metaverse officer and CEO of the Futures Group and the Futures Intelligence Group. And for years, she's been evangelizing about the power of the metaverse, this transition into a space where we can be present virtually and engage with society in a very different sort of a way. And I think you've seen that really explode in the last year. Companies are now starting to lean in and creating their own virtual communities and virtual societies and businesses. But I think for the vast majority of people, it still seems like something that is out of a movie. Yeah, it really feels like it's still out of a movie. And so we've invited Kathy to come and speak on our main stage, because we felt it was really important to demystify this entire new world and to give our community direct access to the people who understand it best and to the people who are building it. And that's also very cool. So when you come to Synapse Summit, you'll have a chance to do everything from mint and buy your first NFT, set up a crypto wallet, experience virtual and augmented reality through things like the Hado esports game. It's an augmented reality dodgeball, which is wild and a lot of fun. Yeah, it's really cool. So when I talk about hands-on, I'm literally talking about hands-on. So, and then, that's kind of the big topic of the moment, but it's important to not forget all of the innovations that are happening in our community around financial technologies and financial literacy, around health and wellness and human performance. And thankfully, the taboos that surrounded that have now seemed to have dissipated. And there's just amazing technology that's being built in our community that is helping to improve people's cognitive abilities, their physical abilities, and changing the way that we talk together about the health of physical and mental health of our society. We'll talk a lot about education. We'll talk a lot about cybersecurity, which is just a booming industry here in Tampa, but really across Florida, with new companies that are moving in and companies that are homegrown that are becoming now global entities. We'll talk about space. So, I mean, it's really dynamic, and we bring all these different pieces of innovation together so that we can break out of our own silos and source inspiration and insight from listening to others. So lots going on.
Mm-hmm. I hear a lot of like action
on
there, and we'll be there too doing live podcasts. So I'm really excited to catch some of these innovators and stuff, and just action on what they're doing and talk about that, a little bit more detail.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's not too late for people to still get tickets and go.
Not
right?
at all. Yeah. So synapsesummit.com is the website, and you can see our lineup of speakers and experts and learn more about what the experience entails. It's a really incredible and intense and fun day at Amalie Arena. And we really emphasize that kind of fun component because nobody wants to go anywhere where it's drag.
Right.
And you really have to go in with that kind of attitude and opportunity to connect with talent, to connect with companies, enterprise level companies and growth stage companies and startup companies, to find opportunities to learn about everything from investing to building your own business. How do you raise money? How do you bootstrap a company? I mean, there are people there who are doing it all. We're really proud that we make the opportunity to connect to our military and veteran community possible through generous sponsorships that allow us to provide free tickets, because these are some of our most talented citizens. They have built and led important entities, and many times as they're transitioning from their careers in service to careers in civilian life, there's a chasm.
Right.
And so we want to help bridge that gap. And so we make this available so that men and women who've been in service, who are currently in service and considering their transition, or even military spouses who have a hard time sometimes getting their footing as they've been transitioning from place to place, can come and again, be a part of this community, see and learn about the opportunity, and understand how they can continue to build a career. So many aspects to the work that we do.
Hey, no, I love what you're doing. I'm so excited for Synapse in just a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Lauren. You are such a great speaker, very eloquent, and just your energy is just so great. So thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you.
I'm so excited after Synapse to give a quick update to all of our listeners on that.
Yes, please.
And I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Please rate, follow, subscribe. And until next time,
Live bold and boss up.